All right, thank you all for joining us for our Leaders in Housing Counseling webinar. Today is Thursday, September 22nd, 2022. My name is Ebony. I am the Administrative Manager here at National Housing Resource Center, and I will be your navigator for today. We at National Housing Resource Center would like to say Happy National Hispanic Heritage Month. We are continuing until October 15th to celebrate this day. And we kicked off this National Hispanic Heritage Month by having a webinar based on Hispanic home ownership report. If you missed that webinar, please visit our page, our YouTube channel, and you can view that webinar. You can also go to our website at www.hsgcenter.org and view all of our Leaders in Housing Counseling webinars there. Before we get started, there's a bit of information that I do want to share with you all. If you can, please put in the chat box where you are watching from, your city and state, and the organization that you are affiliated with. We'd love to see who is watching our webinars with us. This webinar is being recorded. So if there's any portion of this webinar that you missed, you can again visit our YouTube channel or our website in order to view the webinar in its entirety. The PowerPoint presentation for this webinar will be added to the chat box, and it will also be sent out along with a copy of the webinar within 24 to 48 hours of this webinar. Closed captioning has also been enabled for this webinar. If you move your mouse down towards the bottom of your screen, you will be able to click the CC button and have the closed captioning show up on your screen. After the presentations today, there will be a portion where you can ask any question for any of our staff or presenters today. Just put your question in the Q&A box, which is also located at the bottom of your screen, and we will answer your question at the end of the presentations. Please don't put your questions in the comment section. We don't want to miss anything because the comments are constantly rolling. So again, please just add your questions to the Q&A box, and we will answer your questions at the end of the presentations. I believe that's it for me. I'm going to turn this over to Bruce Dorpalin, and he will take it from here. Thanks again for watching, everyone.
Thanks so much, Ebony, and welcome everybody. I know it's a busy time of the year, and we're glad that you're jumping in. We do have a pretty important topic to deal with today. So what we're going to do is going to do a quick legislative updates. I'm going to throw in some things that we're working on that would be important for you to know about in the housing counseling field and policy work. And then I think Ellie's going to walk through outreach events and future webinars. And then we'll spend the bulk of our call on the culturally specific home buyer education. And I'll save those introductions for when Ellie does them later, but it's a pretty interesting and I think valuable opportunity here for all of us to learn. And then we'll do a nice plug on joining NHRC at the very end. And please get your membership in for this year still. That would be great. We're doing a membership drive right now, and we're really encouraging more groups to join, though, and we have a few groups that still need to renew for the year. So please jump in on all of that. So let's dive in quickly. So, Christy, do you want to get us started?
Yes. Hi, everyone, and thank you so much for joining our call today. So for appropriations on FY 2023, the House and Senate members have returned from a long August recess, and they have until next Friday to either pass a spending bill or a continuing resolution, but it's looking like the continuing resolution is the most feasible path forward. The new fiscal year starts on October 1st, so they are running short of time, but we are expecting a continuing resolution to be passed through December 9th or December 19th. And then after the continuing resolution is passed, Republicans and Democrats will have to negotiate on top line numbers for programs. And we have heard that funding levels may be lower than the current proposed levels. So the House put the HUD Housing Counseling Assistance Program at $70 million, whereas the Senate put us at a lower number. So we'll keep advocating for the $70 million this year. So if you receive an email from me regarding a legislative meeting, I'm looking for Ohio groups to join us next Wednesday. Please respond to me if you're available. That would be really meaningful because offices love to hear from housing counselors. So yeah, thank you so much for this, and I will pass it on to the next speaker.
So where we're at is on the, so Eric's going to do the one after this, so that's good, got that wrong. I want to just jump in on a couple of things. So first is, if you have opportunities to talk to the offices of your House and Senate members, it would be really helpful to do what Christy just said, which is so $70 million for HUD housing counseling funding. And right now they won't have direct input. So the idea is we were asking members of the House and Senate to talk to their leadership about putting this in. And you know, the standard reply is, well, this is a tough year and we're not going to have enough money. And I think that the reply is twofold. One is that we are a very inexpensive program, relatively speaking. This is not $1 billion program. We're talking about $70 million, which while that's a lot more than you or I might make in a year, it's really not very much in terms of the federal budget. And the second thing is that the return on investment is very high. You're saving people from losing their homes. You're helping people become homeowners. You're working with renters so they don't lose their apartments. You are doing all this amazing financial literacy and credit work. The return on the dollars spent is very, very high. So do the best you can there. I'm going to throw in one more thing before we move into the outreach work, and that is that I was at Home Free USA and their conference this last few days ago. As always, it's a high energy event and high content event. They do a great job. I see Griffin and Simone and Milan and Christina and many others. But they had Sandra Thompson there. So Sandra Thompson, hopefully you know, is the newer the director of the Federal House, FHFA, the Federal Financial, I'm gonna get the name wrong here for the moment. So Sandra Thompson is FHFA's director, the regulator for Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. And we have long time worked with them about getting things into the program so that housing counseling is much more effectively integrated. And it's been kind of a roller coaster ride, but she, I think we mentioned on the call, we mentioned that she instituted finally that the housing counseling data fields and the language preference be included as requirements for Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac loans. And this will start in March, but the nice thing about it is that the data is getting collected and that it's then it becomes useful when people are trying to make mortgage application. There's evidence about who provides the housing counseling. There's language preference is captured so that they can communicate in the proper language. We had a meeting with Sandra Thompson on our own this morning, so after the Home Free USA thing, with a number of housing counseling leaders, and they confirmed that this information, that the language preference will transfer to through closing to the servicers. So that's really good news. This is one of the main reasons we were pushing this, was that during the foreclosure crisis, lenders and servicers were sending out notices to people in English when they clearly spoke some other language. They would say, oh, we just don't know what language they should communicate in. This solves that problem. So that's really a big help. We did learn that while they will collect that information in the origination space for housing counseling, it's not required that it be transferred through closing. And they said they're working on this, but I think in the future, what we will try to do is encourage individual lenders and servicers to implement that on their own, so that the information is included with the mortgage. So, and if somebody gets into trouble on their mortgage, they can be referred back to your agency that you provide the original counseling on. So lots of good things like that. We talked about how to increase housing counseling in the Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac space, and how to get people who have low down payments and good but lower credit scores to not have to pay the extra LLPA fee, 1.5%. We talked about also trying to get housing counseling to be built into the automated underwriting system, so that if you've had counseling and you have a low down payment and a medium-sized credit score, that that can act as a compensating factor and bump up. LA and I are now talking about doing some special workshops on the leaders' calls on some of the innovations in the digital space to help capture people's credit, so we're not so reliant on credit score and the credit report. And we'll have more about that coming up in the future. But I want to just keep you informed on this. We're doing a lot of work also around trying to figure out how to reposition first-time home buyers so that they're not at such a disadvantage in the marketplace, but a lot of work to be done there as well. Okay, with that note, let's go on. So Eric, fill us in on the latest on outreach.
Thanks, Bruce. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Eric Moore, and I'm the Outreach Coordinator with NHRC. To start, we have 3 new job postings posted to our job board. The first one is a financial coach. It's in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. The second is a housing case manager, which is in La Crosse, Wisconsin. And the third one is a housing counselor, which is in Vandalia, Illinois. And all of these positions are they require you to be HUD certified or preferred. So if you want more information on those jobs, please go to the job board link. Christy just posted into the chat. The job board link will show where the jobs are located, and you can also apply to those positions as well. On to the Cheney University Career Expo. NHRC will be participating in this event on Wednesday, October 12th from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Then finally, don't forget to follow us on all our social media platforms: Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and we also just created a handshake profile to speak with other different organizations and students. And finally, if anyone on this call has any connections with any HBCUs or Hispanic institutions, please contact me. I'm going to drop my email in the chat box, because we're trying to diversify our job pool and hire and recruit students to take the certification exam. And that's all I have today, and I'll pass it back over to Bruce.
Excellent. So, and this is all part of our career path work, where we're trying to increase the number of housing counselors coming into the field and recruit people who aren't familiar with the field at all. So the way the job board is the most effective is if you post your jobs of people you're trying to hire. Eric's doing a terrific job, and we'll want to expand people who get to see the job board, but it's going to have the most business if people are posting jobs, and it's free. So there's kind of like no loss for you. You can do your other recruitment as well, but please make this an add-on to what you're doing and encourage others to do it as well. We're trying to build up the volume here and reputation, and that way we'll become much more a useful tool for everybody. But I think this broad recognition, we're going to have to increase and expand the housing counseling workforce going forward. So with that good note, let's talk about future webinars. Is that you, Ellie? Or who's doing that?
Yes, that's me. Thanks, Bruce. Hi, everybody. We just want to let you know about a couple more webinars that we have coming up to make sure that you register. We're going to be next week talking about the Bank of America, their newest mortgage loan product. We hope that you'll participate so that you can hear about it, so that you can ask questions. And we're also hoping that you'll give some feedback and your thoughts about the product. And then on October 20th, we are looking at hearing from our friends with Student Debt Crisis and at Savvy about the administration's new student loan forgiveness plan. So be sure to be on to pay attention to that. They're going to review and go over the application that is due to come out in the beginning of October for folks that want to apply for the benefit. And that is it for those updates. I think that now we want to move on to the main part of our presentation today about culturally specific homebuyer education. And we're going to start with Jackie Butts, who is the founder of Sum Clarity LLC. From her time working with New York Life Insurance Company to the many years managing bank branches and being a licensed loan originator, to her most recent role as the Homeownership Program Director for Portland Housing Center, she's been able to serve her community by not only offering appropriate financial products and service, but also teaching financial principles and money management skill sets to help consumers take ownership of their finances. In her current role at Sum Clarity, she continues to demystify money management for the Black community, drawing on her 25+ years in the financial industry and through educational programs such as Getting Your House in Order, a culturally specific financial education course for African Americans. So Jackie, welcome and take it away.
Thank you very much. And thank you for the opportunity to share with you and everyone in this meeting the need for and the effectiveness of culturally specific financial education. So next slide, please. Okay, so why are we doing this? Well, we believe that in the effectiveness of this course, and it also helps us to achieve what our mission is. And what we want to do is empower people to live their best lives. And our mission is to shift the paradigm of wealth and home ownership in the Black community, one household at a time. Next slide. Our culturally specific financial education works. It builds a confidence in a way that is personal and rooted in the cultural experience of our participants. Next. When it is done right, it can have an impact on generations to come. Next slide. So let's just share a little bit about the origin story. How did this course come about? So what we want to do is, oh, there you go, thank you. The course was originated at Portland Housing Center, and their mission is to create homeownerships in communities of color. And while they have been around for almost 25 years, and this is up to 2010, their services and programs were not being effectively utilized by the African-American community, the community that they were dedicated to serve. And so in 2009, they realized that only 20% of those who attended their program orientation were African-Americans, and less than half of them signed up for services. And in 2010, less than 5% of their African-American clients became homeowners. So something had to change. Next. So PHC took a different approach in order to get different results. So here you could see the changes that were made. We created an African-American advisory committee to help us to reach out into the market and engage that community. We had internal capacity building where our staff had to reflect the community that we served, and our environment had to be a warm and welcoming one. And we also utilized research, our own and some external research. And with that, we began the development of our course. Next. And so based upon the research, we identified 3 types of barriers to home ownership. First, it was family experience, anticipated discrimination, and lack of knowledge. And so when it comes to financial practices, building trust and knowledge is essential in our community. We value respect, trust, safety, security, and a sense of belonging. And financial institutions did not really create that in the community. So African Americans generally navigated finances through referrals and through their social networks. Next slide. So with those identified barriers in mind, the course was created. And in 2010, we introduced Getting Your House in Order. It was created by African Americans, taught by African Americans, for African Americans. It created a safe space for authentic interaction. We married knowledge and experience. We used skill building and confidence building activities. And it was a 4-week course that we expanded to 5 weeks because we were having so much conversation that we needed time to let everyone really experience and exchange the information that they had. In 2015, we graduated 138 people from the course. Now, it doesn't sound like a lot, but we had over 400 people participate in the course. And I'm a stickler. You don't get to graduate if you did not complete all of your homework and attended all the sessions. So that number clearly went up after people made up their assignments. Next slide. So the curriculum was really designed to address and ultimately aid in the breakdown of the barriers that we identified. There are some key elements to the course that helps to make it a very unique offering. We have the letter to money, where the participants are writing to money as if it's a long friend that they haven't been keeping in touch with and they want to talk about their relationship, and money writes back. So we open up that communication. They're doing active participation, such as weekly spending tracking, research in financial products, calculating their own net worth. So it's a course that is making them actively do things as they learn it. Next. And so we wanted to have specific outcomes with the course once a participant was completed. We wanted to know, are they financially resilient? Were they able to have control over their day-to-day spending? Did they have money at the end of the month? Did they feel financially empowered? Were they confident when they walked into a financial service like a bank? Did they enjoy parts of their lives? Were they able to go out to dinner without feeling a stretch on their budget? And ultimately, we wanted them to become successful homeowners. Next slide. So while we have always gotten positive feedback from our participants, and we felt that the class was achieving those goals, but we really wanted to know for sure. And so we were able to participate in a project impact, and we used that research to verify our actual results and outcomes. Next. So we focused our research on these questions. After graduating, did our participants exhibit changes in financial behavior, increased confidence, and a sense of being in control of their finances? Next. Our method was to use in-depth interviews for qualitative data, and then we emailed surveys to our participants so that we get the quantitative data. Next. In analyzing the data, these were the recurring themes that our participants highlighted, and I'm going to touch on each one of them. So next slide. The first one was, it was a catalyst for new positive financial behaviors. Now, perhaps the most demanding test of a financial education program is whether the participants change what they do, their behavior, as a result of being in the program. And to raise that bar a little further, the question is whether those changes go beyond the short-term shift in the wake of the course experience to become long-term permanent changes embedded in that participant's day-to-day choices. 2/3 of the Getting Your House in Order graduates made a change in behavior, and the evidence shows that they were sticking with it 1 to 5 years after participating in the program. Overall, our participants saw increase in savings, a decrease in debt, and an improvement in their credit scores. And furthermore, you could see that some of their words that they did this not with a sense of hardship or difficulty, but with a sense of purpose and pride. Next slide. Okay. Now, we compared behavior 6 months before taking the course to behaviors after completing the course. And so here you could see when it comes to using a budget, before taking the course, only 5% of the participants always use a budget and 49% never use a budget. After taking the course, 32% always use a budget and 0 never did. So they were using a budget at some point. Next slide. In looking at maintaining an emergency fund, before the class, 5% always did. After the class, it became 32%. Before the class, 49% never maintained the budget, and that dropped to 0% after the class. When it comes to contributing to savings or investments, before the class, only 3% did that, and after the class, 34% contributed to savings and investment, and 17% never did it, and that dropped to 3% after participating in the course. Next slide. Furthermore, evidence shows that money management skills have improved the decrease in the usage of high-cost predatory lending products. Before getting your house in order, 17% of respondents reported using services of predatory lending products. After graduating the course, that dropped to 14.6%, and the frequency of their use declined in this group. 75% of the graduates that used these products before completing the class reported a decrease in the usage after the class, even in times of emergency. So you can see that those behavior changes where saving and so forth are starting to take an effect. Next slide. Now, for many participants, in the general expectation was to take this course and to come away with an understanding of how to read their credit reports and to stay on track towards their home ownership. Instead, they came away with a deeper understanding of their personal relationship with money and how their past experiences impacted their current behavior. By critically examining their own relationship with money, participants were able to better understand how it was affecting them, and they created internal checks on their own spending and financial behavior. This profound change reinforced the likelihood that they would adapt skills and stick with positive behaviors. Next slide. So when it comes to their relationship with money, before the class, 61% felt high stress about money, 15% felt somewhat low stress, and 0% felt very low stress. After the class, the shift was only 22% felt high stress about money, 41% felt low stress, and 10% felt very low stress. So you could see on the slide, there's a quote from one of the participants that really kind of wraps that up. Next slide. Oh, my bad. Okay. So doing things differently is going to require confidence. And getting your house in order builds confidence by providing hands-on experiences in a supportive environment with others who are learning new skills as well. Participants don't just learn about financial concepts. Instead, they tried out new tools and applied them to their own lives, making that learning experience a personal one. They became comfortable using these new skills and tools that they've gained, and then they can comfortably and purposefully ask questions when something is not clear. Next. You can see that in sense of feeling confident, before the course, 34% felt that they could effectively manage their finances, and 27% felt, let me just pause, 34% felt that they could effectively manage their finances. And after that the course, 80% felt that way. 27% felt that we're confident in their skills. After the class, 80% felt confidence in their skills. So confidence is transformative. Confidence allows our participants to take bold steps, the results of which we may not immediately be measurable, but we have high anticipation of. Next slide. Okay, sorry. So confidence is going to help you to stand taller and allows you to interact from a position of strength. So here's some quotes from some of our participants that you could see. One says, as long as my credit score is good, I should get the same loan as the other person. Others, Because I know that I can't be discriminated against, I feel more confident asking questions if I don't understand something. So you can see just the ability to know and understand what you're in for is going to change the dynamics when our clients are going into financial institutions and dealing with lenders and bankers and so forth. Next slide. There's also a sense of freedom and relief when you realize that financial well-being is not based upon income level, but on income management. So here we could see before the class, 24% had a sense of control over their finances. And after the class, 68% felt a control over their finances. Before the class, 22% felt that they were on track for their long-term and short-term goals. And after the class, 68% felt that way. Again, you could see some of the quotes from the participants. Next slide. Now, the new confidence and skills gained by some participants gave them a boost to pursue new avenues for generating increased income, job security, and ways to protect their future through insurance or investing. Some course participants went back to graduate school, and in one case with an eye on financial planning career. Others, while pursued small businesses and developed focuses on ways to increase their jobs and income and job security. And those who became homeowners were interested in understanding ways to protect their investment and their future through insurance. So having come this far, some of our graduates wanted to continue moving forward. Next slide. Again, just words from our own participants. So you could see the impact. One of them says, I'm looking into saving, investments, things like that. Other things that I can help with my net worth over time. I wasn't thinking about investments before. So you could see that the class is making internal changes in how our participants are viewing money and what their expectations are for the future. Next slide. By exploring the historical context of African-American homeownerships, participants discovered that homeownership was not just about buying a house. Instead, it was also about building a future for generations and having a legacy for your family. Participants started to speak about the importance of a homeownership to their family in the present moment and to future generations. They gave voice to long-term view that what they did now could and would affect their family for generations to come. They came to understand that a home is more than a stable roof over their heads. It was also a financial asset that could be the building blocks of wealth creation. It can be transferred from one generation to the next, and it had the potential to change the trajectory of families in the future. Getting your house in order empowered new and personal understanding of the power of intergenerational wealth and help participants to see a link between their choices in the present and how it would make their families more financially resilient in the future. Next. Again, just some other aha word moments from our clients. One client says, after taking the class, I just started saving, and not just for myself, but for her son's future, right? So we can see that, again, mindsets are being changed here. Next. Now, as graduates come to see the personal wealth creation is being instrumental to building wealth and the power in African-American communities in general, many leave with a feeling of responsibility to share the financial management skills that they've learned so that others in their family and community can gain from their knowledge. We have had folks constantly refer people to the class and take their books and start to teach family members. So the one thing with this community is we don't hoard information, we share it, especially when we feel it is valuable to our friends and neighbors. Next. Again, some additional aha moments that you can see. Now, from the second class that we did, and this was over 7 years ago, to every single class afterwards, we've had participants that were referred to someone or knew someone that took that class and was told about it. We've had a class where a dad was in one class and the next session, here comes his daughter. We had one pupil and then here next session, here's the aunties and uncles and cousins. So what we're realizing is knowledge is power, and when it's shared within the community, it empowers all of us. Next. So what will the long-term effects on and impact on family and community be as a result of this course? We really can't say for sure. However, if the current impacts are an indication, our future looks promising. So right now we're seeing permanent changes in behavior, greater financial resilience, confidence, empowerment, pursuing other life goals, having a sense of personal freedom. Our graduates experience significant behavior changes and mindsets, the result of which can be far-reaching. Next. Now, there is power in the ripple effect. The impact of positive change from generation to generation, moving from the mindset of saving to spend to saving to invest, moving from the mindset of being renters to being owners, thinking about how your financial behavior not only impacts your immediate family, but how it impacts future generations, thinking about not just me, but about we. This is a change that this course can make on our folks. And the future of our African-American community can be financially strong and stable. And it begins with knowledge that's delivered in a culturally specific manner. Next. Now, one of our graduates summarized their experience with the course, and you could see their quote: "Getting your house in order provides the tools, the skills, and the nurturing environment to create that vision and confidence to execute a strategy and to achieve it." Next. So where do we go from here? The goal is to expand the reach and the scale. Now, during my time as a homeownership program director at PHC, I started the process to make the course available nationally. And I'm continuing that work through my company, Sum Clarity, by licensing and training organizations that serve the African-American community. And to date, we have 18 organizations that offer the course and is available in 12 states. And so we are looking to continue to grow that. So I thank you for your time and I look forward to your questions.
Thanks so much, Jackie. It's so important to be thinking about this when there's so much talk about meeting consumers where they are, right? And so here we are with an opportunity to be learning about how to do that. And with that, I want to move to our next panelist, Dana Williams, who's the Director of Homeownership and Asset Building at NeighborWorks Blackstone River Valley in Rhode Island. Dana took the training with Jackie back in 2019, and she's going to give us her perspective on providing this training. So Dana, welcome and take it away.
Good afternoon, everybody. I don't know what much more to say after that. It's Jackie's kind of a hard act to follow. Just wanted to kind of piggyback a lot of what Jackie has said. Rhode Island being the smallest state in the entire United States, we historically, we do not have a large population of minority homeownership. This course has definitely opened up a lot of eyes here to the point where our first cohort that we actually, let me roll back. Before we did the first cohort, we tested it out, and we did like different groups of people just to come together, just to have a conversation about how they feel about this type of curriculum being taught, like getting the pros and the cons. When we cut out things that we felt that weren't perceivable, I'm sorry, my brain is on fire today because I have so much I want to say. And the course just means just that much more to us. We definitely parsed out by doing the meetings with different groups of people. They explained to us what they felt that was important. We incorporated that with the information that Jackie did teach us, and we still build on it to this day. When we got out and advertised for the class, we ended up having about 20 people come and enroll for the class. We had about 15 show up and do the 5-week class. So now it's definitely taken off in Rhode Island. It is definitely word of mouth here. We do market it pretty well, but again, taking the class and marketing it is two different things. People definitely speak about the experiences, our testimonials. Anyone who's taken the class definitely loves the class. As Jackie has said, one of the favorite exercises in the class is the letter to money, when we are held accountable and we recognize the things that we need to do as far as changing generational behaviors when it comes to how, you know, we as African Americans handle money, how once upon a time we were viewed as money. You know, I enjoy the fact that we have created an environment to where it's safe to be vulnerable. We've had social workers take part of our, you know, our 5-week course. They've implemented it in dealing with their families. We've actually signed on with one of the colleges here in Rhode Island, which is College Unbound. So we teach this course there as well. So it's managed to, it's grown in ways I can't even put into words.
So,
I'm sorry, go ahead, Ellie.
So Dana, talk to us about some of the successes that that people have been through your session have had.
So we've had a couple of people who live in our housing who have been notorious late payers as far as rent. So we suggested that they take our 5-week course. We explained to everyone, there's no judgment here. We just want to see, you know, where you stand and what's really going on. In the root of having this financial education, this cultural education, we find that culturally there's a lot going on in people's financial worlds. It's kind of like robbing Peter to pay Paul in order to survive. And when you're working on survival mode, that's what kind of tends to cause different things to go into motion. Again, changing the mindset of how to save. Really having those internal conversations with yourself. Do I really need this item in order to feel good about myself when I'm knowing I'm saving and I'm creating an emergency budget to be able to survive an emergency should one happen. And if an emergency does happen, it won't crush me to the point where I'm late paying my rent or I'm not paying other bills on time.
And then talk a little bit about one of the things that we talked about when we were talking about this webinar was that becoming a homeowner isn't always the end goal.
No,
so
it's not.
And that a little bit.
Definitely not. So I always peel the, and I teach this class with one of my staff members. Her name is Rosalind Mitchell. Rosalind Mitchell is amazing when it comes to teaching about budgeting and saving. But here's the thing. You know, we peel back the layers of what stops you from doing that. Putting numbers on a paper is one thing, but as you're doing the one-on-one discussion and creating an action plan for someone, when you're in the class and you're having these open conversations, people tend to realize, oh my God, I'm not alone. And, you know, I have someone who looks like me who is having somewhat of the same issue. Then the room opens up a little bit more. The suggestions start to flow in. So as we're teaching each cohort, and each cohort is very different from the first one, because whatever we learn from the first cohort, we debrief and we create a little more activity for the next 5-week course. The discussions get really deep. So much so we've had some tears during class, a ton of aha moments. And then at the end of all that, a pledge to change. And we also put it out there that the change doesn't necessarily happen overnight. It happens gradually. And we explain that, you know, gradual steps are better than no steps at all. Once folks are successful, they come back, and I can't tell you like the big smiles on someone's face when they've earned the right to be able to rent an apartment. You know, their credit is high enough where they can have an apartment, or they want the car that they wanted, or they can get a student loan because they've built themselves up from taking the courses with us. And the fact that, again, everyone in the room looks like them. So it's easier to bear, sometimes it's easier to bear all when you see the representation that matters in the room.
Yeah. So, you know, a question came into the chat, so I'm just going to put it out there because you just said something that's related to this question. And Jackie, if you want to answer this as well. But this person says, this is a terrific presentation. Do you think that it's possible for someone who is not of the same culture or race to help clients achieve these successes?
So the thing, we get that question all the time. We have regular classes that teach financial I always call literacy education, or however you want the buzzword to be. It is difficult, and I'm going to put it out there for what it is. My experience as an African American woman in America, as far as any type of financial requirement or whatever, is definitely going to be different than someone who does not look like me. We teach the material is basically financial literacy, but there's a lot of historical feeling that goes along with this. That's the whole crux of the class. It's how it's taught. It's not so much the material, it's what goes into the class. It talks about our history from slavery till now, and how culturally we get to speak to each other. Because before, it was against the law for anyone who looked like me to even have any type of being able to read, being able to have a bank account, to be able to do any of that stuff. So we all speak from those veins. Every now and again, we do have someone who comes in, and this is a class of color, so you don't necessarily have to be African American. We bring other folks of color into the room. We do have we haven't had it yet, but I know that the question has come up. If you have someone who has a spouse who isn't African American or a person of color, they are allowed to come into the room because they are part of the other person. But again, the class is basically based around those experiences of people of color.
And if I could add, there is a culturally specific class for our Latino, Hispanic population as well. Disparities. That class is still housed at Portland Housing Center, but I can train for that. So there's two culturally specific class: Getting Your House in Order for African American community and Disparities to Futuro. And so if you're interested in that, you could reach out and we could talk about that. So that's that. And then yes, with the Getting Your House in Order, there's only a couple exceptions that we make for the class to not be solely African American participants, and that is marriage. I really, that's the only one. If you're married to someone and they're not African American, but you're going through your whole program together, then yes, you can come in. The one caveat to that is we don't change the material. We don't change what we talk about. So while we are talking about our history, and the first course, the first session is our emotional why we do the things we do session, right? And we debrief a slave receipt, and we talk about our history and the implications of that in the first class, because that has generational impact on our ability to create wealth, acquire wealth, and so forth. So we can't change the conversation as the instructor, but what we have noticed was that the class itself kind of changes the conversation because they don't want to make someone uncomfortable. So it will change the class dynamic a little bit. The information will get through, but it'll change some of the sharing and the dynamic. So you really want to keep it African Americans, period. And hopefully that helped.
Mm. And by the way, we do teach both. We have the ability here that we do focus on. We do teach both classes, Disparities to Futuro and Getting Your House in Order.
And so somebody mentioned that class that you just talked about, Dana,
Mm-hmm.
And is that the name of the session that you were referring to, Jackie?
Yes, Disparities to Futuro. I see someone mentioned it. So yes, that's.
Yeah. And that's through Portland Housing?
Yes, Portland Housing Center still has that class, and I do the training for them. But it's not a Sum Clarity. Like Sum Clarity owns Getting Your House in Order now. So this
right. Yeah. So can folks reach out to you if they want to know about that class as well?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Great. So there aren't any other questions in the Q&A right now, but one thing that I wanted to comment on, because somebody did put this in the chat. I've been counseling families of all races for years, and they have attained similar outcomes, and I'm Latino. Now, I didn't know if either of you wanted to respond to that in any way.
I do. When you have something, and this is, and I want to put that this is no disrespect to anyone who is not a person of color or of the Latino race or what have you. when you have something that is specifically geared toward you, whereas there's always been an environment to where there was nothing geared towards you. There was no representation of that. Financially, African Americans do have it a lot. And as I've studied this more and more, because now we teach the course here, I read more articles about the disparities and so on, that, you know, they're so blatant sometimes. And when you're not aware of it because you're just part of the environment, you just kind of go along because it's what it is. But it doesn't have to be. And when you're educated enough and you have that confidence, when someone sees my brown face come in, they just assume that I know nothing. But when I come after even taking the course myself, I'm confident enough to know that if I'm being handed something that isn't equal to what everybody else is being handed, I have enough education and confidence now and awareness now to say, no, I don't have to do business this way, and I don't have to give you my business, but I'm smart enough to not have to, you know, to engage in that. I do also have come to realize that the Decide Tu Futuro classes are definitely a little bit different because in the Latino cultures, there's a lot of cultural differences and richnesses, and there's different degrees of it. So again, when you come together, there's more of a togetherness there. The Black community is working on becoming a little bit better with that. I hope that answers the question a little bit.
If it can, let me just add to that too. So for the class is not necessary. What we're saying is we want a culture-specific financial education class. We're not advocating that everything be culturally specific. So understand that this course was born out of a nonprofit that serves all community. All of our counselors are serving people of all community. So you're right. If you're Latino and you're counseling your clients, regardless of their race, and you're getting similar outcomes, that's the skill level of you as a counselor. However, what we're saying is when your client goes to that financial education course that you're offering to help supplement the counseling, the effectiveness of that course hits differently when it's culturally specific. And so what our counselors have found, and I still say our, and even I haven't worked at PHC in over a year, but what our counselors have found is when the clients are going to the culturally specific education course, whether it be Getting Your House in Order or Decide Tu Futuro, those clients now come to counseling much more engaged and prepared to make the changes that you or the counselor are recommending, because they have a fuller understanding of the why. They now understand why they need to do this. They now understand when you say you cannot afford this house, they know why, right? So it makes your counseling an easier job because now you're partnering with someone who has had their aha moments, and now it becomes easier. So we're not saying that if you are of one race, you cannot counsel another. What we're saying is your clients, when they're getting information delivered in a specific way, become better clients to work with, because an educated consumer is your best customer. 1970 commercial, if anyone recognizes it, right? But that's the effect of the education piece. And so if that helped, then let me know, or if you want to re-ask the question, if I didn't answer it properly, then let me know also.
Well, there wasn't a question, it was a comment that you know, one of the counselors made. And so I will read a couple more comments just because I think they're a little pertinent and maybe you want to respond to them. But you know, one person said, you know, it can be hard, the culturally specific for Hispanics can be helpful because even with a language barrier, right? You can, there's that issue as well. But then, you know, somebody said, if you're trying to reach people who might think they couldn't be homeowners or savers, but with the framework of their own community and legacy, it helps motivate people and honor their culture at the same time. It helps create safety to talk about hard things. I think the safety issue is one that really hits home for me. Go ahead, Dana.
That's a huge thing. And again, like I said, when Roz and I got together to, you know, to teach the course, we just kind of said, okay, this is it, because it's scary to teach something like this because this is different, it's new, and you don't know which way it will be received. Again, the vulnerability in our rooms, in our workshops is so enriching, because now, again, it helps us to become better counselors too, because we all have the standard stuff that HUD requires us to do. And yes, we all as counselors do that. But with these courses, it just gives you that little more oomph to have a little more deeper conversations, with our community. Because you can have, like I said, HUD is just pretty general, but we're talking to you from a vein of, that, we have this action plan here for you. You had an off moment. This is where we're going to reel it, we're going to turn it back around, and we're going to, redirect you back to where you got started. Again, it allows the fact that you can fail and be okay and come back and get some more education and get some more education and get some more education. I just feel like I said, I don't know. It's just like warm dinner for me when we teach. And
so a question that I have for both of you, whoever can answer, is if you have a homeowner come, or a potential home buyer come through who ultimately is going to need some sort of certificate for a specific mortgage product or for a down payment program, is a certificate for this type of home buyer education accepted?
yes, because it covers the 8 hours of HUD training that HUD requires us to have.
Okay. And how long, how many hours overall is this training? I know you said 5 weeks, but overall, how many hours is it?
So it's basically 2 hours over the 5 weeks each class. So
it's 10 hours.
Yep. Just, hi, Deanne.
Well, I don't see any more questions in the chat, so we will move on to the next. I want to say thanks to Dana and to Jackie for talking about this today. This is a really useful program and interesting for organizations to start considering. And Jackie, I assume that folks can reach out to you directly if they have more questions or they want to learn more about how to get involved.
Yes, I do see 2 questions in the Q&A.
We dealt with them.
Oh, we did those already? Okay, fine.
Yeah, they're not, there's no new ones.
Okay, all right. All right, yes, they could reach out to me directly. I think my contact information is part of the PowerPoint slide that they'll receive.
Yes, great. All right, with that, let's wrap things up and go to the next slide. So as always, we encourage you to join NHRC to support the work that we do. Without your help, we can't do the legislative advocacy that we do. We aren't, your support helps us talk about ensuring that the annual HUD budget is where it should be and is beneficial. One of the things that I want to make sure everybody understands, the 100 million that ended up with, that NeighborWorks is doing with all of you through the Homeowner Stabilization Counseling Act, is specifically due to the advocacy that NHRC did. That's how that $100 million got into the American Rescue Plan. So your support helps us do that work. And the benefit to you, along with the work that you support us to do on your behalf, you get a discount from CoreLogic Credco for their credit reports, and you get a discount on the Savvy online student loan service. And if you come on October 20th, you'll hear more detail about their program and what they offer. Also, if you're a member, you get word about unusual funding. And as I mentioned, you get the satisfaction of supporting our work. Next slide. So you can see all of our contact information here. Feel free to reach out to any of us if you have any questions or thoughts. And want to remind you, I should have remembered this, as part of our membership drive, If you renew your membership or start a new membership with us during the months of September and October, you get a mug. And it is this really amazing, huge coffee mug. It's kind of a dark red with our logo, our 10th anniversary logo on it. And so that's another benefit that you get for becoming a member. And so with that, thanks everybody for joining us, and have a great rest of your day.